Welcome to the debut edition of the Inside Nutley podcast. I'm your host, Tom Greco, and I'm pleased to be joined by Township of Nutley Mayor, Dr. Joseph P. Scarpelli. Welcome, Mayor.
Thank you, Thomas. Look forward to this podcast, and hopefully this is a new way for us to communicate with the public.
Mayor, since this is our first podcast, as you said, why don't you tell our listeners who may not be familiar with you a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, I'm Joe Scarpelli. Grew up in Nutley, but to know about me, you probably should know a little bit about my family. My great-great-grandfather came to Nutley in the 1890s. He bought a piece of property up on Milton Avenue, and he worked as a gravedigger in the Mount Olivet Cemetery in Bloomfield. And when he had raised enough money, he sent for his family and brought them over and lived on Milton Avenue. And my family still lives there today. My mother and my uncle and my cousins all live up on Milton Avenue. My grandfather, Peter Scarpelli Sr., was what I would call a community activist. He was very passionate about representing the Italian-American community. That neighborhood up on Milton Avenue and the surrounding hills was called Nanny Goat Hill. He ran for commissioner 4 times, 1964, 1968, 1976, and 1980. He never won commissioner, but he did attend commission meetings for over 20 years and sat in the front row and was affectionately known as the 6th Commissioner. In 1983, my dad, Peter Scarpelli Jr., ran for commissioner and won. And he served as a commissioner for over 24 years and was a mayor for 1 term. But before that, he was active in the community. Very important. Both my grandfather and my father thought that community service and giving back to the community was very important. And my dad volunteered for the Nutley American Little League. He volunteered for the Nutley Family Service Bureau, Knights of Columbus, Unico, before he ran for commissioner. So community service has always been very important in our family. And when he retired in 2008, I decided to run for commissioner. I won. And have been a commissioner for over 14 years. I was mayor from 2016 to 2020, and then I'm also took the mayorship again this past May. Also important to my family was education. I went to Nutley High School. I went to Uppsala College and graduated New York Chiropractic College. I've been a chiropractor for 35 years in the same neighborhood where I grew up, on the bottom of Milton Avenue. And that's what's a little bit about Joe Scarpelli.
Well, just so we were clear with everybody, I first met the mayor tackling him in midget football in the early to mid 70s. I felt this huge weight on my shoulder as I was trying to get up, and I turned around and I said, "Get off me!" And it was Dr. Joe. Hi, Joe Scarpelli. And that's how we met. So tell us a little bit about growing up in Nutley and what that was like for some of the people who aren't familiar or new to this town.
Well, growing up in Nutley has always been special. I love this town. We have a great school system. We have a great park system. And one of the reasons that I did run was I want to keep this town the way I remember when I grew up. It's very important to me. I have a business here. I raised my kids here. 2 of my children have raising their families here. And my grandson will be the 7th generation. My grandson Nicholas will be the 7th generation to call Nutley his home. So Nutley is important to me, and keeping it the way it was and is important also.
Was that the major source of your involvement, getting involved in public service? Obviously, your family's been in it forever, but was that the motivation for you to continue that tradition?
Yeah, obviously it's in my blood. Talk about my grandfather and my father. So they're definitely in my blood, public service and community service. And the natural outlet for community service is to serve, right? It's serve publicly. Some of the things that I did in the past, I was on the Nutley Board of Education. I filled it on expired term. I also served on the Essex County Freeholder Board for 1 term. So I've been involved in the community, involved in public service. involved in community service. And that's something that was always stressed in my family.
Nutley has a very unique form of government. Can you explain that?
Sure. So we have a commission form of government. We're one of 32 municipalities in the state of New Jersey with a commission form of government. Uh, Most of those are 3-member commissions, and most of those are in South Jersey, the very small shore towns down there. But there are also 7 communities, mostly in North Jersey, that have a commission form of government. The commissioners are the legislative and executive branch of government. In Nutley, we have the Commissioner of Public Affairs, which is Commissioner Kelly, Commissioner of Public Safety, Commissioner Petracco, Commissioner of Parks and Recreation, which is Commissioner Tucci, and the Commissioner of Revenue and Finance, which is Commissioner Evans, and then the Department of Public Works, which I am the director of. We have people that run the day-to-day operations, but we are the directors of each of those departments.
And how is the mayor determined?
So after an election, by tradition, the top vote getter is selected to be the mayor, but the mayor is selected among the other commissioners. So, but that's been the tradition, is the top vote getter becomes the mayor.
With that in mind, 2020 was quite a different kind of election, correct?
Yeah, 2020 was a very unique election. It was run entirely by mail-in ballot. So there were before election day, there were ballots, people voting and sending in their ballots. After election day, still more ballots being received and counted. And so, that was very unique. And then also we had, after 8,000 votes, there was a tie between Mauro Tucci and myself for mayor. And, after a 5-minute conversation, after the county clerk had posted them online, Commissioner Tucci gave me a call and he said, what do you want to do? I said, how about if we split the term and have 2 years apiece? And he said, that's a great idea. And within that 5 minutes of them being posted online, we decided what to do with the next 4 years. We thought that was good for the community. It's ridiculous to fight over something when we have so many important issues that we need to resolve.
Considering that election took place during a pandemic of the kind that we've never seen in our lifetime, at least. With that in mind, what are some of the town's biggest challenges post-COVID?
Well, one, COVID was very difficult to deal with. Just all the restrictions that were involved, just trying to meet. Well, one of the good things that came out of the COVID is Zoom that we're doing today. But very difficult. We lost some of our leading citizens, so that hurt a lot. But going forward, we have 3 redevelopment projects that we have on the books that we're going to move forward in. And I also want to look at our flooding, some of our flooding that we had over the past summer with Storm Ida and some of the other storms, and then look at our infrastructure. So those are like the 3 main issues I'll be looking at going forward over the next 2 years.
Again, for those people who aren't familiar with our form of government, and a lot of, there's a lot of talk on social media, as we all know. That seems to be the place where the town criers are. But just to inform those who don't know, how many hours a week does a commissioner typically spend on his commissioner job as opposed to his real job?
Well, even though commissioners are supposed to be part-time employees, it's full-time work. I think we all put in over 40 hours a week, and we do it because we love the town, and we want this town to move forward. And no one does it for the pay, that's certain.
What is the pay?
So for commissioner, you receive a total of $2,250 per year. And the mayor gets a big raise. He gets an extra 500. So $2,750 doesn't really even buy gas for all the events that we have to go to.
That's amazing. I think that's something that a lot of people lose sight of, the amount of time that all the commissioners put in. Having been doing this for about 6 months and working closely with the commissioners and living here for 60 years, prior to that, I never knew the amount of time that went into what all of you do. And I'm not trying to kiss up or anything. It's just, let me put it this way. I would never do it. It's a lot of work, a lot of time, and to do that and be able to run a successful business or any kind of business is just, it's an amazing thing. And what other reason? I mean, why would you do it if you didn't love the town? I mean, that's my personal opinion. A lot of people don't seem to share that, but maybe they will after seeing this.
Every commissioner that I've known in the past and the current Board of Commissioners, they only have the best interests of this town at heart.
Let's touch on some of the main issues that are coming up. Let's start with the pool club. What's the status of that?
So the pool club, we were in litigation with the owner over the what it was zoned as. They felt it was zoned for mixed use with residential and commercial. Our zoning map had it as mixed use, just commercial and office space. We were in litigation over that. We have a settlement that's been signed that will make it a over 55 residential community for 99% of it, 85 units. 3 would be market rate apartments, but we think it's the best interest of the town to have that settlement move forward, because some of the other uses that could have been there if we would have lost the lawsuit would not have been good for the township.
I know as someone who's dealt with this issue, there is a tremendous backload of a waiting list for over 55 apartments, correct?
Yeah, we think that this is going to be very successful. I mean, there are so many people that we hear that are downsizing and looking to stay in Nutley, and we don't really have anything available for them. But we think that this is going to be an upscale over 55 apartment complex, and it's going to be something that we certainly think is going to be attractive to our residents who are looking to downsize, or even those who are over 55.
That's great. What about the Ciccolini property?
So the Ciccolini property, we declared that that area, an area needed redevelopment and rehabilitation. It's a process that we must go through in order to rezone it. And so we put out an RFP to get from the development community what they want to see or what they would want to do there. I mean, we are the Board of Commissioners, but we don't have redevelopment experience. So we want to see what people were thinking. We received 3 proposals from people out there in the redevelopment community, and we're evaluating at this time.
Nothing is certain or sealed, correct?
Nothing is certain or sealed at this point, no.
How do you go about determining whether or not, to redevelop that area or any area specifically?
Well, one, Ciccolini's was for sale. They had a buyer. It was going to be many, many units in there. We had traditionally had that area for some of our parking for the commercial restaurant and some of the other shops around there. And Mr. Ciccolini had always rented out his lot. If that was developed without any input, we would have lost some of that parking. So part of the RFP that we put out was that we need to keep the parking we have, plus add an additional 50 spots. And we also are going to have some open space on the avenue of 5,000 square feet. So we're able to control what happened in that by doing this process.
When something like that is proposed, there's a lot of speculation, especially online. We've all seen that. A lot of it is hearsay and in plain English, fiction. What exactly do the commissioners, what are you looking for in terms of making that area a positive thing for the town?
So we want some viable retail space. Some of the other newer apartments have very small retail space, so we're looking for viable retail. We're looking to revitalize that end of town. We're looking to preserve the parking, as I said before, and we're looking to have some open space. And we want to make that a model redevelopment for the rest of the town, the rest of the Franklin Avenue, so we can move forward. If you remain stagnant, you fall behind the other towns in Essex County and in the state. and we really need to move forward and keep our business district viable.
Can you give us an update on the On3 process?
Yeah, so when Hoffman LaRoche left, they left us with 5 vacant buildings. All of those buildings are now filled. I believe that it is the best innovation hub in the metropolitan area. We have a School of Medicine on site. We have ISI, which is a pharmaceutical company that's in the big iconic building. We have Ralph Lauren, who everybody knows. They occupy another one of those buildings. And then in what the research and development building, we have a Modern Meadow, which is a biomanufacturer. They produce leather in a laboratory. And we have Hackensack Meridian Center for Discovery and Innovation. They do cancer research. We have YMABS, who does pediatric cancer research. So we really are at the forefront here in Nutley, and we're going to move forward. We still have a couple parcels that need to be developed, and the whole Clifton side needs to be redeveloped. We have some issues that we need to make sure are addressed before we move forward on some of the other parcels, mostly traffic. We need to make sure that the traffic coming through Nutley is not going to be unbearable, as it was when Hoffman LaRoche was there. It was terrible. For those of us of a certain age who have lived here a long time.
That's for sure. Waiting at that light for about 20-25 minutes used to be normal every day.
Yes.
I definitely understand that. I know that the idea of a podcast is one way to get the community involved. If they have questions about any of these issues, the best way to get to you right now is to send us an email, correct?
Correct. You can send me an email. You can send it to your email, and we'll address that on future podcasts, or I'll write back to you on if you email me. We try to communicate as best we can. It's almost impossible to refute every rumor that's out there or misinformation. It gets frustrating at times, but we're hoping that this podcast is one of the ways that we can get information out to people that is credible and not misinformation.
Well, that's correct. That's part of the goal. If you have any questions for the mayor, we gladly address them here and you can email us at publicrelations@nutleynj.org. You'll see that right on your screen. But this is the place to do it moving forward. Again, there's a lot of questions on social media. The commissioners cannot answer everything, and it'd be silly to do something like that. So this is a way to do that.
Sometimes by answering those things, you give credibility to them. Right. And sometimes you just have to ignore some of the silly stuff that's out there.
Well, that's again, this is the opportunity for our residents to do that, and I think they should all take advantage of that, because knowing you and knowing the other commissioners and knowing myself in terms of doing this podcast, that's the whole point of it. We want to make sure there's transparency and that our residents' questions are answered. I mean, that's part of this goal.
Yeah, my goal is to use this as a unique forum, right? Something that all the commissioners can access and get information out. Maybe even have some of our other elected officials in the state come on and explain some of the things they're doing. The best that we can get out information, the better off we are.
Great. With that in mind, we do have a couple of questions from our residents. If you don't mind.
I'm ready.
All right. This is from Joanne Riviere. She lives on Elm Place. Who or which department approves the contractor's ability to build in Nutley? How do you plan to address school overcrowding?
So let's break that question down a little bit, because it depends on what's being built. If something is being built in a zone that allows that to be built, then that goes forward going through the code department. If it's in violation of our zoning ordinance, then it either goes to the zoning board or planning board. In what we have with some of the redevelopment projects, those are a little different. We have On3, we have Ciccolini, we have the pool club. Those are done a little differently, and you have a redevelopment plan. You have to have public input and hearings on that plan. So that's what's done as far as the different kinds of redevelopment. I hope I was clear on that.
Well, following up on that, the commissioners and the planning boards, all those boards, they're totally separate entities, correct?
Yeah, so the zoning board is a separate from the town commissioners, right? The planning board has the mayor and one of the other commissioners on it, and then, people from the public. And then the commissioners obviously are separate. But the
But
redevelopment projects really run through the commissioners, so more than anything else.
approval for those kinds of projects has to come from the boards, correct? In other words,
Correct. Yeah, you just, I mean, it's like I said, as long as you, as long as you comply with the zoning ordinance, you can move forward. But if you don't comply, then you have to go to the zoning board for approval or to the planning board for approval, depending on what you're asking for.
what I'm trying to get at is that the commissioners don't pull the strings on those boards. They're independent.
No, the mayor appoints the people, but after that, you better not get involved.
Exactly. Great. What about
So overcrowding was the other issue.
how do you plan to address school overcrowding?
So, I mean, obviously that's outside the commissioner's purview, but we certainly, I'm going to speak for myself. We're supportive of tackling the overcrowding issue. We've had 3 referendums that have failed. We need to get a referendum out there that can pass. And that way we can move forward as not only as a school district, but we can move forward as a township, because we can't be blocked from doing things that we need to do to move forward if school overcrowding is an issue.
Okay, the next question is from Christine Taramina from Evergreen Avenue. Please update when the 3 shipping containers will be removed from the Diamond Springs property.
So I will look into that. I mean, shipping containers, any pods or shipping containers are usually on a temporary basis. I know that they've been up there a while. I will check with our departments to see what's being done to address that.
Great. I have a couple of additional questions just from me.
Sure.
This question's right up your alley. When will the roads in town be finished?
So we've over the past 5 years, we've had a very good cooperative relationship with public service. They've had a gas line, a main line replacement going on. They rip up the roads. They stay that way for a while. We wait for them to settle. But when by the end of the summer, we will have from that project, these last 5 years, we'll have over 2/3 of our roads repaved at no cost to the local taxpayer. And that, I think, is worth some of the aggravation, some of the rough ride, and some of the road closures and inconveniences that we've had.
You know firsthand, because Bloomfield Avenue up until recently had been a mess, and that's where your office is.
It's almost a year that I've been dealing with the gas line replacement project at my office. At one point during the winter, I had all 4 roads, Bloomfield Avenue, both ways, Milton Avenue and Hope Street, all closed at the same time. I got a little friendly with the state trooper up the top of Crestwood and Hope, that anybody who waved to him was coming to my office. So anybody that called and said they couldn't get here, I said, just wave to the trooper and come on down. And but you know what, it was paved last week. So that's almost a year dealing with that personally.
It just shows how much of a power a commissioner really has over somebody.
Yeah, that's true.
Circling back to the school, schools being overcrowded, trailers have been a major source of distress, I guess, to a lot of us who grown up here. Obviously, we've done the referendums; they haven't passed. What's your take on with regard to how much the commissioners can actually do about the trailers? Your power is kind of limited with that, right? It's a board of education thing.
It's a board of ed thing, but obviously, as the town leaders, we have to take a leadership role here. Because of state mandates, we don't really have our student population has remained very steady for the last 20 years. But because of state requirements and mandates, the school itself has kind of shrunk. You have classrooms that you need to dedicate to special needs and other things. And so there's not much room within the building as there used to be. And so the trailers were an interim step at the time to accommodate that. And so whatever goes forward, we want to make sure does eliminate the trailers. One of the things that the commissioners did when the bike shop property was available, we purchased it because it was contiguous to the Franklin Middle School. So we wanted to make sure that property was available for any expansion that may occur. And the referendums did utilize that property in expanding the John Walker Middle School, but the people didn't vote for it. So we're back to wherever the board is going to move forward with that. And I for one will be supportive and hopefully have some input into what they put forward to the public.
You showed your age a little bit there by saying Franklin Middle School, right?
And no, I corrected myself as we went along.
Same thing for me. I mean, we all love Mr. Walker as much as possible. But if you grew up and it was Franklin Middle School, to always be Franklin Middle.
I'm going to tell you a good Mr. Walker story, a personal Mr. Walker story. So when I was appointed to the Board of Education in 1996, he came up to me and he said, "I remember you." He said, "I remember, during a student faculty base softball game, you slid into second base and you hurt Mr. Henry's knee." Now, I knew that, but I was saying, how the heck did this guy remember that? When I was in the 6th grade at Lincoln School. And he had a great memory. He was such a great person. Shame he got sick and passed away, but enjoyed working with him on my short time on the Board of Ed. He was the assistant superintendent at that time. Really a great man. And a man who overcame some barriers to become a leader in this community.
He touched just about everyone that he ever met. He was just, I mean, when we were growing up and we were all in different grammar schools, he was teaching at Washington. And even then we knew him because he'd be at every sport event and he'd come up and he'd encourage you. And again, he's sorely missed. And anyone who ever came into contact with Mr. Walker understands why the very least we could do was name a school after him. How do you think the latest housing reassessment will affect our taxes?
Well, reassessment is something that we certainly don't look forward to doing, but we're ordered by the County of Essex Board of Taxation that we have to go out and reassess so many years. So the typical rule of thumb is a third of the people stay the same, a third go down, and a third go up. Unfortunately, a third of our residents going up is a lot of people, upsets a lot of people. The people that go down, the people stay the same, you don't really hear from them. But the third that go up, we certainly hear from them, and it's unfortunate. But what's good to remember is it has nothing to do with the amount of taxes raised. It's the same pie, it's just how it's split up.
What is being done to deal with the flooding problems that we had recently?
So, with Hurricane Ida and a storm earlier in the summer, last summer, we had tremendous amount of flooding in places that we were never flooded before, and unprecedented flooding in places that normally flood. So we are currently doing a H&H study. It looks at our infrastructure, and it looks at all of our storm sewers, all empty into the Third River or Passaic River. So it looks at also the Passaic River and the Third River, and it looks at the areas that flood to make sure that the infrastructure is adequate and how it flows, and any changes or mitigation that we can do to prevent some flooding. So when that study is complete, and it should be soon, we'll have some ways maybe to go to FEMA and help reduce the areas that flood historically.
Right.
I don't think anything we can do would correct or mitigate what happened during Ida. That was a tremendous amount of water in a very short period of time. So there's no way to mitigate that.
I think, and again, not kissing up here, I think the response from the town during that was amazing. Seeing the people out there and the people from your department, people from all the departments, saving people's lives. It was just, it made us proud.
I think there was 72 people rescued in the town. And not only the police and fire, but DPW and Parks Department with their front end loaders. You know, those people put themselves in harm's way to help other people and save other people's lives, because the people could have died that night. And thank God no one did.
Amazing. Last question, and this is kind of a selfish question because I hate traffic as much as anyone. Any update on the Kingsland Street Bridge?
So that is not a Essex County or Nutley project. That's a Passaic County project. And we had received some rumors, you know, we read social media too, that the bridge wasn't going to be completed for another year. So we had our engineers contact the Passaic County engineers, and they assured us that they are on target to, that they were actually pouring the deck probably 2 weeks ago now. And they're on target, according to Passaic County, to open by the end of the summer, that roadway.
That's fantastic. All right, Mayor, give us an idea of what do you look forward to in future podcasts?
Well, like I said earlier, I'm hoping all the commissioners take advantage of this, and you know, hopefully we can get some of our other elected officials. We can address some of these issues. I like to, you know, go into more detail on some of the goals, some of the redevelopment projects, some of the flooding as we get that report back on what we plan on doing, and the infrastructure. Obviously, hopefully by our next podcast, I can tell you that all the roads that the public service we're working on are all paved. You know, I got asked a question probably in 2012. If I could wave a magic wand, what would I want to have happen? And I said, if I could wave a magic wand, I want all our roads to be repaved so that my phone would stop ringing. But and that's one of the things that the Commission Form of Government does. It's very accountable. People know how to get in touch with you. They want to know when the pothole is going to be fixed in front of their house, or the recycling wasn't picked up. They get in touch with you, and we respond to them. So Commission Form of Government is very accountable in that way. But you know, we're hoping that we could be able to report that all those roads are repaved, and that, you know, the magic wand came in the form of public service, electric, and gas. Because without them, we wouldn't have got our roads all repaved.
That's great. All right, just want to remind our listeners and our watchers on YouTube, if you have any questions, please feel free to email us at publicrelations@nutleynj.org. That's publicrelations@nutleynj.org. You should be able to see that at the bottom of the screen right now. Mayor.
Thomas, I want to thank you for coming up with this idea. You know, like you said, you and I have known each other a long time. It makes it very comfortable to have this conversation, and hopefully we do start to provide some accurate information for all of our listeners and watchers out there.
I should have known this. Our public debate class in 11th grade with Mrs. McMillan would have led to this for you as mayor.
I don't think anybody thought that I was going to be mayor at that time, Thomas.
I wish I could have bet some money on it.
I don't know where you got the odds back then, but
thank you, Mayor. We'll see you next month.
All right. Thank you, Thomas.
Bye-bye.